In this week's episode of My Cat's Tale, the story of Shadow.
She was like, leave me alone. It occurred to us that no one was going to adopt this cat. I mean, she is Miss Murder Mittens, let me tell you. This thing has clawed down. She welcomes the play mouse with a little trill. Now she welcomes the play mouse, Bruce, and me with a little trill.
Joining me now on My Cat's Tale, all the way from Canada, we have Louise. Welcome to the show, Louise.
Thank you, Ewan. We're just getting over a huge snowstorm.
And your snowstorms are huge snowstorms. Over here in Scotland, it's just like 1 inch of snow, everything stops.
We got 12 inches, roughly.
Well,
That's peanuts for Canada.
I know. But we're not here to do a Snow Patrol podcast. No. We're here to talk about your cats. 2 cats living with you just now, Shadow and Taffy. Tell me about them.
Well, Shadow is the latest addition. We adopted her from the shelter in November, and we adopted her because she was the only cat that was completely shut down. She was sitting in her little cube, if you will, and she had basically put her little head down and she wasn't looking or reacting to anybody. All the other cats were right at the cage, oh, hi, I'm beautiful. She was like, leave me alone. And after we'd been in there for a little bit, it occurred to us that no one was going to adopt this cat. And then we heard she had been there since July. So November to July, that's quite a while. And we're thinking, okay, this cat is going to be on the euthanasia list because no one is going to pick up a cat like this. So they chipped her and they did all the good things, and they got her into our carrier and we brought her home. And what we usually do with new animals is we give them a room where they're completely safe. Door closed, food, water, toys, beds, whatever. And we let her be. So she showed no inclination to come out. She stayed in that cat carrier for 2 days, I think. Didn't budge, except to sneak out and get food when she didn't think we were there. Then it sort of dragged out days into weeks, and this cat was not going to interact with us whatsoever, no matter what we did. And it was a bit depressing because we're used to a bit more interaction. After about 2 weeks, we decided it was time to put a child gate in the door and allow Taffy to see her. Taffy didn't like her one bit. Taffy hissed, growled, noted that there's a new cat and I don't like it, and left. She wasn't going to have anything to do with her. Shadow, for her part, cowered into her little cube and just like, go away, leave me alone. She showed some interest in a toy. We were able to get her a little bit interested in a mechanical mouse that we had, which she would wind up and it would cross the floor. She thought that was pretty cool, but she wasn't going to really make a lot of effort to come out. So picture this, Ewan. We have a room. It has a window. It has a bookshelf in the window. This is all set up for the cat. So she get up, look out the window, crawl into the space. Well, she crawled under the bookcase and she wasn't going to budge. So we were getting fairly upset. We thought, well, maybe we haven't done the right thing. Anyway, we continued on with the child gate thing. And then we decided maybe we should open the door and maybe just let them interact. Bad idea. Taffy marched in with her fur up, basically said, I don't like you, I'm coming in, and you can just leave. And the other cat responded the next day by peeing on the couch. So we were really taken aback. This has never happened because we were just not used to it. So we quickly went and looked up various information that we could find on cats peeing on things and situations, rescues, whatever. And people suggested One, put a litter box on the couch. See if that will get her to go back in the litter box. Make sure that you totally cover the area with plastic and fabric or whatever so that you're not going to have staining. Well, too late for that. So we tried that. And the little cat eventually showed us that, in fact, what she wanted was to see the door. She did not want to have her litter box behind the door because Taffy could sneak and surprise her. So we also reverted to having the door completely closed at this point. Limit interaction completely and see how it went. So this went on for a couple of weeks. We kept on reducing the area of floor, couch that she could possibly soil, reduced the number of litter boxes to one. At one point, we had 3 litter boxes. And she showed no inclination to pee on anything by the end of the box. She's not a dirty cat. But she wasn't going to be friendly with us. One day, by accident, we happened to have a Chinese back scratcher with a little hand attached to it. And we reached out and scratched her with that because she is Miss Murder Mittens, let me tell you. This thing has claws. Oh, yeah. So we started to do that, and she enjoyed that. And she showed that, well, okay, as long as you're not going to try and pick me up or do anything else scary, I like the stitches. And we persisted with that for a few weeks. And finally, she sort of started to unbend a little bit. But December, she was still hostile. I mean, you walk up with some food, she hisses at you. Like, get out. I hate you. You reach a hand out, it's like, you touch me, I'll kill you. And, you can tell by a cat's expressions what they're thinking, right? Anyway, cut a long story short, eventually, after all this time, now at today, we have her wandering freely in the house. She's not pleasant with Taffy, vice versa. They are giving each other dirty looks and hissing, but no fights. So she's showing some signs of interacting with us. Like Bruce started to do this thing where there's a place called the Flatbush Cats. Flatbush Cats is in New York. They're a rescue. And what they said to do with feral cats is you feed them, but you feed them on your knee. You put a towel out, you put the food out. If they want to eat, they have to come to you. So at first, it was like she'd be sort of stretching out as far as she could. Now she's sitting right on Bruce's knee and letting him pat her. Now she's welcoming us with a little trill. She welcomes the play mouse with a little trill. Now she welcomes the play mouse, Bruce, and me with a little trill. So I'm her play buddy. I go in, I sit with her, and I play with her with the mouse. Bruce feeds her. And she's just ever so slightly you, and she's warming up to us.
It's been a long journey, but it sounds like it's been a very respectful journey.
Yes, we are totally respecting her space. I think any other approach would have been a disaster. She does not respond well to being pushed. So she did something very strange the other day for her. We always have a lie down after lunch. Old people have to have their little lie down. And she pops in and she sits on Bruce's legs and sort of looks at him. And he didn't do anything. He was very careful not to move. And then she kind of left. But that was like amazing that she did that.
I want to go back to November there. Yeah. When you said you went into the shelter, you looked at all the cats were there, and Shadow was the one that caught your eye, and it sounds like it's a wonderful partnership there, even though it's taking its time to get there. Why had you decided to bring in another cat? You have Taffy there, and I can see from your post online, you've had many cats in the past. So why was this time right?
We weren't sure it was right. I think it was we weren't. Taffy over time had bonded with our previous cat Gandalf, who was more like a dog. And we always had a dog, then we had Gandalf, and then the dog moved on. And then we just had Gandalf, and Gandalf passed on. And Taffy seemed okay with that. But we felt that possibly she did need a little companionship because she started to behave with me as though I was her big cat. Like, seriously, it's the whole thing. We go into the window, we have to watch birds together. And she's quite demanding about that. She was just acting for all the world like maybe she could use a companion. I'm not really much of a cat. So,
I mean, I've seen your hunting skills. You can go for the birds when you have to.
Oh, yeah. But we thought maybe it would work. She's an older kitty, and we just thought maybe she could use that companionship. But there were two things going against us. One is that apparently females are not known to get on right away. So that was a mistake on our part. And that the other cat was so traumatized by whatever had been in her past that she might be a difficult fit for everybody. So that was bad on our part. But that's why we made the decision, because we thought maybe this was a good time.
Did the shelter have any information about Shadow, apart from this cat has been here for such a long time? I mean, how old, where they came from, anything?
They think she's about 6 years old. They don't know where she came from. That's it.
So just this mysterious cat in the shelter, and just sitting there. It's still called Shadow in the shelter?
No, she was called, I can't remember what they called her. It was, we didn't like the name. It was didn't think it was applicable. Shadow works because she's always hiding.
What about Taffy then? Taffy, you said, is an older cat now. So where did Taffy come into your life?
She came into our life in 2011. She came from a home where she was being terrorized by a younger cat, and the owner was a complete idiot. They apparently didn't think it was necessary to separate them. So Taffy is being chased around the house by this young Siamese cat who was picking on her and beating up on her. And Taffy's not a fighter. And she was just traumatized. And this dopey lady said, oh, I have to find a new home for Taffy. And because her husband wasn't that keen on Taffy. And so we sort of took the challenge, and we went over and got her. And Taffy was, I think, 4 years old at the time. And it took her 2 months to come out of the basement where she was hiding. And then she came up and she lived in Bruce's office for a long time, a very long time. And then we adopted another cat because the owner had got a new job in the States and he didn't want to subject his kitty to airline travel. And so we took in Dilly, and Dilly had never lived with another cat and certainly not a dog. And we thought, oh gosh, this isn't going to work. But it did. They bonded. And she became very attached to Dilly. So we adopted him sometime, I think, in September, October of that year, 2011. We got her in, I think we got her in July 2011. And then Dilly came in late summer. And then she had just emerged from the basement, was in Bruce's office, eventually bonds with Dilly. And then we discovered that Dilly was terminally ill. And we had to put him to sleep in the early February of 2012. It was very traumatic. She was so bonded to him. And what we didn't know then is that had we maybe taken a little bit of fur from him when he was put to sleep and given it to her, that she would have known what happened. The vet said that this is a good procedure to do. If you were going to have 2 or 3 cats and one of them has to go, you ask the vet to shave a little bit of fur off the outgoing cat, bring it back in a baggie, and let the other cats smell it.
So almost like a memento.
Well, it's apparently pheromones remain on that fur. They apparently know. I did it with Gandalf, and Taffy was okay with that. And so when she was grieving apparently for Dilly, my then garden assistant said, "Oh, why don't we go to the shelter and see if we can pick up a friend?" And that's when we picked up Gandalf. And Gandalf was Mr. Settle in right away and take over. And, you know, the rest was history. We had him from 2012 until 2021. Between times, we had other adoptees. So, yeah, it's been a long cat story.
So have you always been around cats in your life?
No, not really. I'm more of a dog person.
Really?
I grew up with dogs and cats, but mainly with dogs. And then, you know, at different times I've had dogs that where I was living, where I could have a dog, I had dogs. And then we had the dog in our first house. And then we got a cat, and then we found a cat under, oh yeah, this was a way back. We found a cat under a car in the middle of winter. And we rescued him. You know, it escalated from there.
There's a lot of love in all of these meetings that you have with cats who need help, who need support, who need patience seems to be the word that springs to mind.
Yes, and that's odd for me because I'm not a patient person. I'm not patient with people, that's for sure. I do not suffer fools gladly.
So what? Yeah, well, at that point, I'm sure there's going to be a dog in there that is going to be, as to quote a phrase in Scotland, as thick as two short planks as well. So plenty times for the dogs, I assume.
Yes, I love that term. That's great. Yeah.
What is it then that, because there's always the eternal cats versus dogs, but cats and dogs can really sometimes work together as a team. It sounds like that your household is one where everybody gets on eventually.
Yes. We had none of the cats that we had ever really had bad interfaces with the dogs. The one cat came into our lives about 2 months before we moved into this house. And that cat, when she came in, had never interfaced with a dog. And we had a big goofy dog who was like very good-natured, big silly thing. And when they met, there was a certain amount of hostility. And they kind of had to be kept separated. We wouldn't sort of leave them alone together. When we moved, we took them both into a vet who did overnights, and we left them there for a couple of days while we were getting moved in. And then we brought them into the house, and it was as though they took mutual support. Suddenly they weren't enemies anymore. It was, oh, I know you. This is the one familiar thing.
With all of these dogs and cats around in your life, yes, what have they taught you?
That I can't deal with bigger dogs as I get older.
All of these animals around you all through your life, what have they brought?
Biggest thing I would say is comfort. And a lot of enjoyment, a lot of fun. We love watching them be silly. We love watching them play. Yeah, they're definitely a source of comfort and joy. Yeah, comfort and joy. And
they get that from yourself and your partner as well.
Bruce was always more of a cat person than me, but you know, I'm an animal lover, so.
So when you both met, did you both have pets at that time, or that you had to introduce to each other as well?
No, I don't think we did. Oh, it's going back a while. No, we didn't. I was living in an apartment. Bruce was living at home. And no, there were no pets involved.
Who was your first joint pet?
First joint pet was the dog back in 1998, I think. No, 2000 something. It was a dog called Tasha, and she can be found on Medium. I've tried to write obits and stories about all of them. So she was a really freaky dog. She came from a situation where she had been brought up as a puppy by her family. Then they had a baby, and the wife wanted her gone. I would have tossed the wife out, but that's another story. No, but Tasha missed her original owner for a very long time. Every time she saw a truck, that she thought it was him, and she would try to go after it. But it didn't take too long. She became very, very bonded to us, and she was a freaky, freaky dog. She would bark her head off if somebody came to the door and you thought she's gonna kill them. She'd dash out the door and stand in the middle of the lawn and bark. She didn't want anything to do with them. Just wanted them out the house. So yeah.
What about your first cat?
The first cat also was in that same house with that same dog. And I actually don't remember why we found out about her, but we found out there was this couple who was going to go and work on a place in Israel, a kibbutz. They were going to a kibbutz in Israel, and they wanted to get rid of this cat because they wanted a good home for her. They didn't want to abandon her. Her name was Shetsu, and she was black. And she had never interfaced with the dog, but that didn't work out too badly. They were buddies. Unfortunately, the couple came back after 6 months and decided they wanted her back. And we said no. And that turned into an amusing situation with all the neighbors lined up ready to kill them if they tried to come and pick her up. So we ended up keeping Shetsu. And yeah, she was our very first.
You mentioned Medium there, and this is where my path and your path crossed over, where you run a very big cat magazine. Medium, for those who don't know, it's an online publication. People can contribute to pages, but you have this lovely oasis called Katniss.
Yes, yes. That was, now there's a funny story there. I had joined Medium back in 2017, and there was a lady who had a lovely photo publication whose name sadly I've forgotten, but she had, I think she called herself the Crazy Cat Lady, and you would send in pictures of your cats. And this went on until I think sometime whenever I started Katniss, which I think was in 2019, she suddenly disappeared, and she said that Medium had cut her off or done something bad. And I thought, well, that's a shame. Look at all those nice pictures of cats. So I started Katniss, and people seem to really like it.
And this is anybody can contribute stories about their cats, pictures about stories about their cats, sharing with people. What a wonderful idea that might be.
Yeah, no, people really like it. Now, what we have found is there's been a few people who want to put in sort of technical articles, and we discourage that, because if the person comes in and starts making authoritative claims about what you should and shouldn't do to a cat, then I say, you got to put in links, and if you don't put in links, forget it. And now I'm going to actually put in a sentence in the about saying we actively do not want that kind of article. We only want personal stories, because I don't want to be responsible for someone coming on and telling a bunch of BS to people. That's not my purview.
There's information out there. There are much more authoritative and research sources. That's where we should be looking for our information about our cat's health. Not, I read it somewhere online on one bit on the internet and they had a nice picture of their cat next to it, so it must be true.
Yes, no. Yes. Yes, exactly.
The nice picture of the cat, that bit is almost always true. The other bit, not
so much.
Vets study years to be good at their job, so let's just move on to that. Anyway, we appear to straight into discussions about cat things, and we will now steer it back again, because one of the things that I saw in Katniss is that you've been able to tell Shadow's story specifically over the last couple of months on how Shadow's been not timid, and just sort of moving back and forward. And what's it been like sharing that story over Shadow's life with you?
It's been great. Yeah, and people have responded really well. A lot of the readers, well, at least 5 of the readers are sort of standard cat rescuers. They have done this for years. This is what they do. And they have had nothing but encouragement and good words and good advice. So it's been fun.
If people want to read this, they don't have to be part of Medium, but they can just go to the direct on the website, can't they?
They can, but Medium only allows you 3 free reads per month. So you have to be a member, but I think the membership is not overwhelmingly expensive. It's $10 a month, I think.
Yeah, and I'm on Medium as well, and that money is actually shared out amongst everybody who writes articles on Medium. So the money you put in gets shared out back out to the authors. That's why there's no advertising on the site. But it's lovely to see you sharing the story of Shadow and everybody else joining in and sharing as well. It's a delightful little community you have there, Louise, and it's a delightful little community that you're continuing to build in your house.
Well, I hope that it'll be delightful. I'm not looking forward to the next vet visit. We have to take her in to get her claws done because we can't do it, and then get her in the cage, and then she won't talk to us for about 2-3 weeks. So that's going to be great.
Maybe it might be just a little bit shorter this time as well. Fingers crossed.
I hope so.
Louise, it's been absolutely fantastic to hear your story. Many cats, many lives. Taffy and Shadow being the most recent. Thank you for coming on to My Cat's Tale and sharing their tale with us.
Thank you so much, Ewan, for having us. We really appreciate it.
You've been listening to My Cat's Tale, a Spence Media production. Listen to more tales of our perfect pets at mycatstalepod.com and support us on Patreon.